Please welcome back our Mistress of Ceremonies, Miss Felicia Rashad.
Education. The IAAM is a very rich institution of education. Here we help families by educating them on their history, young people of what's possible for their futures, and everyone on the true history of generations that have come before us. As an educator and the first African-American president of Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia, Dr. Johnnetta Cole began her esteemed academic career in collegiate education at Fisk University, where she was admitted at age 15. Well, most of us around here chasing something else. Please welcome author and award-winning educator in Tier 1 colleges and universities, anthropologist, civic leader, and one of the most fascinating people I have ever met, Dr. Johnnetta Cole.
My sisters, my brothers, my siblings, all. It is still morning. A good morning. And as Dr. Maya Angelou would say, were she here with us at this moment, she would say, it is a morning we have never seen before. And it is a morning we will never see again. It is a profoundly special morning as we gather at the sacred ground of this international African American Museum. One of my favorite proverbs says this: it does no harm to be grateful. And so I want, drawing on the lesson of that proverb, to turn to my beloved sister friend, the sister president and CEO of this extraordinary place. I want to say to the good Dr. Tanya Matthews, thank you. Thank you for all of the work that you have done to make my dream, to make the dream of each of you, to make the dream of millions and millions and millions of people a reality. And yet I know this sister president. I know her well. And I know that she would be the first to say that a project of this size and complexity is never, ever done by a single individual. It takes a team. It takes a team united around a shared goal. As an African proverb teaches us, when spider webs unite, they can even tie up a lion. It was the leadership team, the board of directors, volunteers, corporate and private donors, and so many others who worked together to get us to this celebratory day. But I do want to acknowledge and thank three very special individuals. I've decided to call them the righteous brothers. Though he has been acknowledged and thanked so beautifully, I've got to call the name of Brother Mayor Joe P. Riley. We know of all that he's done for this city, from redeveloping downtown to growing Charleston as a business and cultural center. We know what he continues to mean to those of us in the African American community, not just here in this city. I mean, all of us. And how would we ever forget his leadership following those profoundly sad, tragic days of the Emmanuel AME church shooting. And yet, this brother says that is, in his view, it is this place that is his best work. I also want to acknowledge the contributions of the Honorable Brother Congressman James Clyburn. It was this righteous brother who was the first chair of the board and an early staunch advocate for this museum. Surely having the Carolina Gold Gallery named after the brother congressman will forever tie him to this great museum. It will stand among his countless accomplishments for his state, for our country. I'm not going to stop there. And for our world. Brother Congressman, it's not from the top. It's not from the middle. It's from the bottom of our hearts that we thank you. And I want to acknowledge Brother Professor Emeritus Bernard Powers. Why? For his important work in the academy, work that is centered in teaching and learning about that profoundly peculiar institution that involved the enslavement of millions of African people. But we also want to acknowledge and thank you, Brother Professor, for your work as the interim president of this museum. Now, when we think about the work of all of these individuals on this long journey from the very idea of this museum to this day, then I've just got to lift up another African proverb, and you know it. If you want to go fast, go ahead. Go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. This museum is on the hallowed grounds where I am looking out at Gadsden's Wharf, where almost half of all enslaved Africans were forcibly brought to the United States. When Brother Secretary of the Smithsonian, Lonnie Bunch, said that this place is one of the most sacred sites of African American history in the Western Hemisphere. He spoke the truth. And as I stand here looking out on that beautiful and haunting view, I cannot help but think of what it must have been like for the estimated 100,000 enslaved Africans as they arrived right there between 1783 and 1807. I feel their fear, their bewilderment, their terror, because those women and men and children, they must have felt in the depths of their souls that they would never again see their families, their loved ones, their friends, their homeland. I can also not avoid thinking of another beautiful and haunting place that evokes similar emotions for me. It is a door of no return on Goree Island off of the coast of present-day Senegal. I remember standing there and weeping as I looked out at water. Water where life begins, but water that for my people became a place of terror. And I looked out through that door of no return, and I thought about my great, 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 great grandmother, Anta Magician Njai. I thought about her shackled, brought to that island and forced through the door of no return onto a ship that would begin her horrific journey in the infamous Middle Passage. I thought about her life's journey, how in 1806, when she was only 13 years old, she was captured, shackled, bound, marched. It didn't matter that she was a princess of the Wolof people. She was sent in those shackles to the door of no return. Put on an auction block in Havana, Cuba. And it was there that Zephaniah Kingsley, a British enslaver, had traveled from his plantation in northern Florida for the explicit purpose of buying people. He bought her. He impregnated her before they reached his plantation. But she endured the horrific experiences of enslavement because of the color of her skin and that she was a woman. This museum will tell the story not just of Anta Magician Njai, but the story of so many of our ancestors. But let us be clear. In telling the stories of the toil and trauma of enslaved Africans in the weary lands of the so-called New World. This museum will also tell the stories of resistance, of revolt, of resilience. This museum will tell the stories of the years that followed of legal segregation and the ongoing presence of systemic racism. And it will also tell the stories of all of the black people and their allies, our allies of different hues and multiple identities, who, as our shero, the great civil rights warrior Ella Baker said, believe in freedom and will not rest until it comes. While I understand that many people wish that this International African American Museum had opened years ago, I just must say, I believe that this museum is opening exactly at the right time in our nation's history. It is opening when it is so sorely needed. For we are living through an especially troubling time, a time of continuous danger to our democracy. Many states, including the one I live in, it is called Florida, have passed laws that, I'm going to say this, that actually ban books. Laws are being passed that make it illegal to teach the truth about African American history and her story, including the horrors of enslavement and the systemic racism that continues to plague our nation. That is why this museum is opening at the right time. Because if one day we really are to form a more perfect union, then we've got to finally heed the wisdom of our brother poet and writer, civil rights activist, James Baldwin. He said, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed that is not faced. And so it is this museum that will help us as a nation, help people from around the global community to face and own the trauma of enslavement. And yes, the extraordinary ways we will face and own and be inspired by the extraordinary ways in which the enslaved and we, the descendants of the enslaved, continue to insist on triumph over terror. The folk who grew me up in Jacksonville, Florida, in the Jim Crow era, would say this about all of these efforts in states across our country to ban the teaching about the truth of African American history. Well, first of all, they would look at me and say, girl, you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you have been. And so, drawing on that rhythm we hear in the black church, let me just say, my. What a day it is. It is a day when we, the descendants of the enslaved, it is a day when all people have a chance to continue to build a far better future because we are learning about our past. And so, as an African proverb succinctly puts it, you must know your past to inform your future. Join with me, my sisters, my brothers, my siblings all. Join with me in acknowledging the International African American Museum for all that it is doing and will do, not to give some of us, but to give all of us the possibility of a far better future.